Hey everyone, it's Rodney here at Cleves Tech, and today I'm going to be talking about camera angles, distances, types of shots, and generative AI tools like Stable Diffusion. Camera angles are important in photography and filmmaking because they can completely change the mood and feel of a shot. For example, a low angle shot can make a subject look powerful or imposing, while a high angle shot can make them look vulnerable or weak. In Stable Diffusion and others, you can use the text prompts to specify the angles that you want. You could use a full body shot from a low angle, for example, or a close-up shot of a face. In this video, I'm going to cover some different examples of how you can accomplish the different shots and angles that you're looking to get. Okay, so for this video, I'm going to be using Focus to create the images, but this does apply to most other of the generative AI tools. Now, the first thing I see a lot of people have issues with is getting things like a full body and things like that when they're trying to get a person, and not realizing that actually the aspect ratio is one of the bigger factors when you're generating an image. So for this example, I'm just going to go ahead and I have it set on more of a widescreen format, and I'm just going to do a coal miner. That's it, plain and simple, nothing complex. Now, as we can see here, we got mostly a shot of the face. The one on the left, we got the upper body, and that's going to be the result you're going to get for the most part when using that aspect ratio and a simple prompt like that. Now, there are ways, obviously, of changing that with the prompt, but I don't want to do that yet because I do want to demonstrate how the aspect ratio can influence this. So now I'm going to actually change it to a more vertical format for the aspect ratio. We're not going to change the prompt. I'm going to actually just use the same seed again, and I'm going to regenerate these. Okay, so as we can see here from the results, just the same prompt, same seed and everything, and that alone influences the type of results you're going to get. So that's one of the biggest factors you want to think of is when you're generating something is first is going to be the aspect ratio, because that's going to have one of the bigger influences on the results that you get. Now, does that mean if you want a full body shot of a person, you have to use a more vertical format? No, there are other ways of doing it. A lot of times it comes down to mentioning other things in the image. For this one, I'm going to actually just put a coal miner wearing jeans in this, and I've set this to more of a square format for this one. This example, it does get the full body in, but because it's trying to fit it into that square aspect ratio, it's showing the person basically kneeling down. So this shows even more of how those aspect ratios can impact the images that you're trying to get. So in this example, we could actually put a coal miner standing wearing jeans. And now with these results, we actually have the person standing. The camera is a little bit further back to compensate for that. So a combination of your prompts and your aspect ratio have a big impact on the results you're going to get for the images. Now, in most cases, if you're just looking for a basic shot of a person, you're going to have an easier time just using a vertical format. But if you need a different format, you can use that and just use these other tricks to get the full body. Now, the other thing you could put in here was full body. The thing is, I find that full body doesn't always work, whereas if you specify things like the jeans or the boots, a hard hat, things like that, you can get more of that stuff into the image because anything you add into there, it's going to try to include in the image. I'm going to go back and actually just show another example. So let's go with a coal miner wearing jeans, but I'm actually going to go with a much wider format like we did originally to see the outcome of this. And as we can see with these results, that on the one on the left especially, that wider format caused it to zoom in more on the jeans that we mentioned and not as much on the full person. Now, for this example, if I wanted to get the full body in there, I could type in full body, and that may or may not work. But the other thing that I can put in here as well, I can put in here a coal miner wearing jeans, work boots, and a hard hat. Now, at this point, it should try to get all of those things into the image, so I should get the full body without having to put in their full body. Because like I said, a lot of times I find the full body is hit or miss. Putting these sorts of things in actually usually works much better. And as we can see here, it fit everything in, but now the person's not standing. And that's where it shows that the aspect ratio is constantly going to be fighting you with a lot of these things. So that's one of the biggest things to keep in mind is when you are struggling to get certain results, that aspect ratio may be the reason that you're running into a problem. Now, what I would normally do in a circumstance like this, I would put in standing for one thing. I could also put in full body because that will help. And another thing I'll put in is wide angle. Now, what that's telling it is you want more of a wider angle shot, so it should be further back. Now, the reason I usually will put that towards the beginning is I find that anything at the beginning is going to have greater influence. So you're much better trying to put I find the angles of the shots and things like that at the beginning. So now let's go ahead and find out if this will generate the results that we're looking for. Because as I said, that aspect ratio is our biggest fight. If I was using more of a vertical aspect ratio, I wouldn't have these problems at all because I wouldn't even need to put in half this stuff because the aspect ratio itself is going to help show the full body. And now we get better results. This one on the right isn't as perfect, didn't show the boots if we had wanted the boots in it, but that gives you an idea of how the aspect ratio has a major impact on the results you're going to get. Now, another thing that we could put in here just to see is if we wanted it further back, we could add in other things. A coal miner standing next to a bulldozer. And what that should do is now try to get the bulldozer in there, so that will probably pull back the shot even more. So I think these demonstrate how much the aspect ratio can have for an influence over the results that you're going to get. So now that we have the aspect ratios out of the way and you understand how that impacts things, you do need to remember that as you're going through and doing all your image generation. If you don't get the result that you expect, change the aspect ratio and see if that helps. Now, the other things that we have are distances. So I went ahead and I generated a few, the same seed, different distances. And as we can see here, we have a woman, and then I have a close-up shot of a woman. Then we have extreme close-up shot of a woman, medium shot a woman, long shot a woman, which I think more or less kept on giving me a gun, and then extra wide shot a woman. Now there's other ones like cowboy shot would be another one. That's, I believe, from the belt buckle up. The problem is with that, you're going to get a lot of times that cowboy word will influence your image, just like long shot is actually influencing it. So sometimes you have to get a little creative and change what you're looking for. You could try upper body shot instead of cowboy shot, things like that. Now, the other thing to keep in mind as well is not only the distances, but how the distances and the aspect ratios interact. So in this example on the left, we have the square aspect ratio with the extra wide shot, a woman. And then we have the landscape aspect ratio, extra wide shot, a woman. And as we can see in this one, it is further away in the wider aspect ratio. So the combination of the aspect ratio and the words and the prompts can mix to change the results of that. Another tool that you can use is actually prompt weights. In these two shots, I've used the exact same prompt, except for the fact that I've increased the weight for the extra wide shot. So with the same seed in this image, I actually got a much further back shot because I've added that extra weight to. So if you're not getting the results, that's another thing. A lot of times you can compensate for the aspect ratio fighting things by using more weight by the distance or the angles and things like that. So now after distances, you have angles as well that you want to consider. And you can mix and match all of these for different results that you're looking for. So for example, here we have a ground level shot of a sports car. And then we have the low angle shot of the sports car, which would be a little bit higher than the ground level. And a lot of these things will change depending on the checkpoint you use, and not every image is going to be the same. You're not always going to get the exact results you're looking for. So do want to keep that in mind. It's no different than when you're generating normally. We have eye level shot, sports car, which is a little bit higher. And then we have our high angle shot of the sports car. And not to be left out, we have the bird's eye view shot of the sports car. Now, all of these are going to be sometimes a little bit different. You may put bird's eye view and it's going to be more of an angle. You may put high angle, you might get the bird's eye view. You'll have to play around with them. But that should get you started with some of those. Then we also have other things that you can add. So this, for example, would be a Dutch angle shot. Now I put shot in there twice, but it's actually Dutch angle shot sports car. And of course you have other things like how it's shot. So this one we have shot from behind a woman walking down the street. You can do straight on, you can do shot from the side. Those are some different options when it comes to those. You have shoulder level shot, like this one, shoulder level shot picnic. We also have things over the shoulder shot, two women talking. You get that over the shoulder view. We also have point of view shots. Now these sometimes can be tricky. You won't always get the results you're looking for. So sometimes you have to use extra weight to get these, or you might say point of view inside a car driving. You might have to specify that, but that's how you get the point of view shots a lot of times. I've gotten things like with tilt shift. You can use tilt shift to get things like this image with the tilt shift cottage. And of course, we have things like the fisheye camera shot of a crowded city. Now, some camera angles may only work with certain aspect ratios, so do experiment with those to see what works best when you're trying to do it. I found point of view shots I had a harder time with the wider aspect ratios, as opposed to more of a square aspect ratio. Another option you have is using image prompts with things like Pyrocani to influence your image to get those shots. If you can't get the shot that you want with a prompt, you can use reference images for the image prompt to get that. So, I mean, I've only covered a small fraction of the possible options. Some great resources for ideas are usually photography websites. I have a lot of information using different lens types and also field of views. All that sort of stuff can influence how your shots come out. So I'm leaving many of those things out, but this should get you started with getting the results you want when you're generating images. Don't forget to check out my other videos as well. If you found this video helpful, please consider hitting the like button because it does help. And I hope you have a great day.